Good morning from the Thoughtful Gardener and Mr. Lynx. We are working on a brand new bed today. It's a raised bed from our friends over at Olle Gardens. We're going to be talking about several techniques and you're definitely going to want to pay attention. Stay tuned. Good morning from the Thoughtful Gardener. I am so excited to share with you these brand new raised beds from Olle Gardens. They are absolutely beautiful. I'm really thrilled to have them in my garden. They were super easy to transport down to the area I wanted them. They came in a very compact box, and I love that you can configure them to your space. So you can make them shorter or longer depending on how you want it. It's really like Legos for gardeners, which is a ton of fun. If you enjoy putting things together, you're gonna love assembling these beds. Not only are they really beautiful, but they're functional, they're food safe, and they are completely transportable. So if I ever move off this property, I can take these easily and set them up at my next property, which I really like. I also am enjoying the fact that I can move this bed into an area that would be more ideal for growing vegetables, and that's what we're going to be doing today. Right here in central Pennsylvania, mid-August, we still have several months of growing here. We're moving from hot to warm to cool over the next 30 months, but that's plenty of time to put in vegetables that like those conditions. So that's exactly what you see sitting in the bed. The first thing I've put up back here is this pea trellis, and I'm using the sidebars from a company called Garden Trellis and Fence. I highly recommend their systems. I use them in my vegetable garden currently, and I've been super impressed with the fact that they don't fall. Here in central Pennsylvania, we tend to get high winds, these downdraft winds that make tomato cages, traditional tomato cages, susceptible to falling. And if you've ever grown a prize-winning tomato from seed, you can imagine how devastating that might be. So I absolutely recommend investing in a galvanized system. It stayed out last winter. It's performing great this winter, and I just pulled off a monster zucchini from it. So let's talk about the techniques that we're using here in this raised bed. We're doing it just like we do all of our beds here at the Thoughtful Garden. We're using a no-dig method. So the grass is pretty short because it's the height of summer and it's really dry right now. So what we did is put cardboard down, and then we've got an entire bed of compost. I know for many of you this goes against everything you've learned about gardening, but I highly recommend no-dig gardening because it is the best way to exceed your expectations when it comes to yield. In this particular case, using Charles Downing's no-dig method has been proven again and again over a traditional bed to improve the yield and the quality of the vegetables being grown. So this is just leaf mulch. That's it. There's no soil in here. We did not do anything to the turf. We just covered it. The cardboard will kill it. And because this is compost, it is extremely dense. That means it's going to hold water well. It's also going to prevent weeds from growing. I never weed my vegetable garden. With rare exception, is there ever a weed in that garden, which means I have more time to do things that I really want to do, which is make content for people like you. So let's talk about what's going in this fall bed. Well, peas obviously are a great choice this time of year because there's plenty of time for them to get growing, and they're going to be super sweet with the cooler nights. Right now we are still experiencing 80 to 90 degree temperatures. That's perfect to get them growing, but then we're going to be back down in the 60s by the end of their growing season. That means a very sweet pea. I know it sounds insane that we'd be growing flowers this time of year, but we have time, and that's what I want you to do. Is I want you to go to your average soil temperatures. You can find this in your local farmers information, or you can look at your average soil temperatures online through sites like Gardening Know-How. And that way you'll get an idea of how much time you have left, because it's really about soil temperature this time of year. Does this soil temperature stay above 50 degrees or not? And it will through our last frost. which is typically around October 15th. One pro tip of using the no-dig method is that this stays significantly warmer than a traditional ground bed. So not only is it easier for me to access, but my vegetables are going to stay warmer. That's going to promote their growth. So I'm also going to be doing companion planting here. You should be choosing plants that require similar light conditions and similar watering conditions. And maybe that seems pretty straightforward to you, but I think this is one of the things that is where the gardens survive or fail. The other thing you want to think about is what plants might be shading other plants. There are some plants that really don't like this hot afternoon sun, and so they're going to really want to be shaded, and maybe you want to position some of your plants so they create some shade for your companion plants. The other thing we want to do is talk about things that will cover the soil and help maintain the soil moisture. Now we're going to be using a product called Saute on top of this bed to help maintain the moisture, but we also want to create a situation where we have plants that will ramble in the bed that will help cover the soil, and that's also going to help with any evaporation that we might have. So I've pulled a bunch of seeds that meet my criteria for soil temperature, air temperature, and are going to have long enough to be able to actually produce into now from a hot to a warm to a cool change. It's really going to be a big change over the next 90 days, and so we want to set ourselves up for success. So one thing you can do is create a chart. Create a chart of what you'd like to grow that has a relatively short harvest time. Things like radishes and carrots are pretty easy to harvest quickly, but you want to make sure you have the right soil, and that's why we've gone with compost here, because that's going to give those great root vegetables the opportunity to penetrate down. We're also going to be feeding the soil with dynamic soil accumulators. We're going to be putting things like nasturtiums and borage in this bed. That's going to allow them to ramble over the bed and help keep the moisture in, but it's also going to invite in the pollinators. Keep in mind, anytime that you're putting flowers in your bed, such as the sunflowers I'm getting ready to plant, we're actually creating an environment to attract pollinators, and that is going to ensure that we get the best yield possible. The other thing we're thinking about in terms of quick harvest are beans. We have lots of opportunity to grow bush beans. These don't take up a lot of space and they're quick to harvest. So you can definitely start multiple bush beans, and that's perfect if you're planning to can this fall. So I'll get the bed planted and then I will show you what I have done. So I want to, in wrapping up, we were able to get all of the seeds here in the bed. Mr. Link has now gone into the shade because it's starting to get warm here. Very important to get shade and stay hydrated on warm summer days. But I want to share with you a couple of parting thoughts. First of all, I did use some mycorrhizae fungi in the bed that will help with the root development of the seeds. I also want to thank our friends over at Olle Gardens. I definitely think raised beds are the way to go. If you're new to gardening, this is a really simple way to get it right out of the gate. Use the no-dig technique. I think you will really appreciate the fact that you have little to do with weeding and you will have little to do with watering, because the compost really holds the moisture, which is great for vegetables. Right, Link? Exactly. Right? They have to use no-dig technique, that is for sure. Well, I also want to talk to you about the seed companies that I use. I think it's incredibly important that you pick non-GMO seeds, and there are certain companies that I work with that are dedicated to this, that are very passionate about seed saving. This is your future, so make sure that you are buying seeds from companies that are reputable and guarantee their seeds if they don't work out. And some of those seeds that I have here that I really love are from Botanical Interests, as well as the Mountain Valley Seed Company, John Schlepper's, and Baker Creek. Beautiful packaging that all of these have, but you can also look at the back of them and they tell you how long before you can harvest. In this particular case, the Ruby Red Swiss chard we put in, 59 days. That's perfect amount of time, and it's going to be cool, which is going to make those chard taste even better. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I encourage you to check out these companies, and I would encourage you to buy these things now because they're going to become very difficult to get. As prices of food continue to rise, people are going to start to turn to gardening, and you want to be in front of that trend. Make sure that you're storing your seeds in a dark, dry place. I encourage you to get these things on board before you need them. It's a great insurance policy for your family. Garden thoughtfully and take care.